Zaldrizes Buzdaris goes down.
Hey, if you're enjoying my content, one of the best ways to support me or anyone you're a fan of here on YouTube, it's sort of like just a direct way to combat YouTube delisting and shadow banning my channel in particular. But consider checking out my Patreon if you really enjoy my content. I'm actually about to start releasing exclusive content on there. I've already done that with my podcast from last week, but I'm going to start releasing stuff days before I ever upload it here to YouTube. So if you really enjoy my content, consider checking out my Patreon. Thanks to every single member who's listed right here. And after you watch this video, and if you decided whether you enjoyed it or not, consider slapping a like on it. The like goal is going to be 420, and then also make sure you're subscribed. I am really close to reaching 100,000 here on YouTube, and that is the ultimate way to combat being delisted and shadow banned like I am. Okay, so in this video, I'm going to break down everything that happens in the promo for episode 6, but I'm also going to explain something that I keep getting comments on. The Maesters are poisoning Viserys. The Maesters may not be doing it all that subtly neither. Like, look at this image of Viserys in the promo, right? Like, whatever disease he has, whatever Westerosi form of leprosy that he has, I talked about that in my live stream last night. It's basically a disease that's been manipulated because this is a fantasy show. So obviously, with normal leprosy, he'd spread it to everyone around him, but that's why leopards, like in the Bible, for instance, the best fantasy book of all time, leopards were sort of outcast and kept away, right? So if King Viserys had leprosy, the Earth version of it, he probably would just kill everyone around him, but that's not the case. So he's got some sort of disease that's making him deteriorate. And guess what? The Maesters, last night, literally, Maester Mellos just keeps going, oh, we've got leechins. Let's do some more leechins. Leechins ain't doing shit. They're poisoning him, and those leeches are probably poisoned themselves. Okay, so to be fair, in the books, leeching is a thing. In real life, leeching is a thing. When you have blood clots, they can put leeches over it to help dissolve that blood clot. In the books, there's this dude named Roose Bolton. There's some people that think he's a skin-changing skin warg and a vampire and all this cool shit. Basically, he's just got this really cool and cold demeanor. He's very calm, he's level-headed, and there's not too many characters like that in A Song of Ice and Fire. Also, the fact that he's obsessed with leeches and blood and how he constantly suggests that to everyone around him, people think that he's a vampire. All that aside, the reason why Roose is the way he is, not necessarily in the TV show, but in the books, the reason why his demeanor is so calm, cool, and collected is because he constantly has what he thinks bad blood being, drawn from his body. And in an actual history, like, if I'm not mistaken, one of the first presidents, George Washington, he was really sick and they tried leeching him. Anyway, all that aside, that's just something to distract you from the poisons that are constantly being put on Viserys. Now, we saw him in the clip for episode 6. He does not look good. He's losing his hair. He's lost his arm. He's going to eventually, have the left side of his face start completely sagging off. We've gotten images of that in promo where he's wearing this mask, very similar to Crab Feeder, but it's probably to save everybody from having to look at his nasty-ass, disgusting face, right? So let's break this down. The Maesters in the books have a conspiracy going on, point blank period. Maester Marwyn, who is at the Citadel, who's been all over the world, he tells Sam this. He literally says, hey, Sam, don't tell the Maesters the information you just told me, or if you do, basically be careful who you talk to, right? So Marwyn is on his way to go see Daenerys because Daenerys brought back dragons back into the world, and Marwyn tells Sam that if it was another Maester that went to Daenerys, they would likely try to kill her and the dragons. That's it. Right there, that's the conspiracy. The Maesters don't want dragons in the world because they're nukes. If someone has nukes, it'll never be an equal playing field. The Maesters have been around since Paramore the Twisted started them in the High Tower in Old Town, and they've had the world's knowledge in their possession really since then. And they, in the books, there's actually Valyrian scrolls that have survived that the Maesters read, so they know how dangerous fire magic is. So they are against dragons. Now, for this TV show, one of the biggest supporting evidence for this is the Great Council 101 AC. I've discussed this heavily in my videos, and I broke it down in a live stream that I did with my buddy Robert, right, a couple weeks ago on his channel, right? Basically, everything that happened at the Great Council 101 AC was responsible to the Maesters. Now, in Fire and Blood, you hear, oh, Laenor got a certain amount of votes. There's a couple other claims that were entertained. They got a few votes. Viserys, ultimately gets the most votes, but there's just way too many different candidates for it to be a complete landslide the way it is in Viserys' favor. Now, if you're unaware, Jaehaerys, the reason why he did this is because he ran out of heirs. His heirs were all dead, and he had, his daughter Sarah running a whorehouse over in Lys, right? And then also he had his son, Archmaester Vagon, who, was had his gold link formed at the Citadel. He kind of should have been way higher up than what he was. He's a really smart dude. But the Maesters always keep the Targaryens down. That's why they sent Maester Aemon in the main series all the way to the wall. The dude was the smartest Maester. He should have been a Grand Maester at the court in King's Landing, but he wasn't. He was sent to the wall. He went there willingly, yes, but trust me, the Maesters are against the dragons, right? So all the way back to the 101 Council, it should have been a landslide. There should not have been a landslide for Viserys, right? So they're the ones who took the votes. Basically, Jaehaerys got the idea from his son, Archmaester Vagon, to allow the Seven Kingdoms to elect who their, next in line for the Iron Throne would be. Ultimately, they picked Viserys, but there's still other candidates, other votes. It should not have gone down the way it did in a complete landslide victory for Viserys. So that's, a huge red flag in my book. And I'm going to address this in particular, as I see this repeated a lot. People keep saying, Viserys doesn't even ride a dragon. Why would the Maesters want to poison him to remove him from the throne? Okay, so the Maesters aren't against Viserys. They elected him as the king. They're removing all of the dragons. They know for a fact that once Viserys dies, there's going to be a big civil war. He did not make a male heir and tell everyone in the kingdom, hey, this is my heir. No, he told Rhaenyra. He told the kingdoms Rhaenyra is his heir. Now, the Maesters keep track of history, so they know before that's not going to happen in Westeros. Like, there has to be a male heir, preferably non-Targaryen. Or for their side, rather, they're happy to have a half Hightower on the throne because, like I just said, the Hightowers and this dude named Paramore the Twisted actually formed the Citadel and the Maesters. So their connections run hand in hand. And if you'll notice, it took them quite a while to start poisoning Viserys. They didn't immediately do it. They did it over time so that there's no exact direct connection to them. And then you also got to realize that literally at the end of this story, I'll say a spoiler alert real quick. There's a spoiler alert for all these videos if you haven't read Fire and Blood, right? We don't know exactly what's going to happen on the TV show, but the Maesters literally give Larys the Clubfoot the poison that kills Aegon II. So the Maester theory is a real thing. Now let's break down that promo. Okay, so the first shot we got is of Caraxes and Daemon flying. And then another thing I picked up from this trailer is the new dynamic between the older version of Alicent and the older version of Rhaenyra. Now I've said this about 1,000 times, but this episode is the big time jump. We're going to see the little Targaryen babies, the little Velaryon babies, and then, most importantly, more dragons! I know there's a lot of people that agree with me. The dragons have been put on the back burner for these episodes, post Daemon down in the Stepstones, right? So, I can't wait. We're going to get to see those. But the dynamic between, and the thing that I've said 1,000 times, right? So, the older version of Alicent is being played by Olivia Cook. The younger version was played by Emily Carey. And the older version of Rhaenyra is going to be played by Emma Darcy. The younger version was played by Millie Alcock. So, the new dynamic they have very much reminds me of Cersei and Tyrion, right? The dynamic the two of them have is constantly insulting each other at these small council meetings. They want to sort of get under their father's good graces, but then ultimately they don't necessarily respect him that much. So that dynamic is being carried into, Alicent and Rhaenyra. You have Rhaenyra correcting Alicent when Alicent says, well, your brother Daemon left the Stepstones after conquering it. He's left it alone for 10 years. Obviously, something was bound to happen. And then, Rhaenyra corrects her and says, no, we left the Stepstones 10 years ago. Your Grace, Queen. That's amazing. I can't wait to see them being really bitchy towards each other. It's going to be awesome to watch. Then we also got to see Aemon facing off against Sea Smoke. I believe that's Sea Smoke. It's just really dark, right? And Aemon claims a dragon at Laena's funeral. So it would just make sense. This doesn't look like the dragon pit. This kind of looks like Dragonstone, but it's really dark, right? When Aemon claims Vhagar, it's at Laena's funeral. So that's going to most likely be happening in the next episode. Laena will die in episode 6, which is going to be crazy because we kind of just got introduced to her adult version of mid-adult version the last episode. She's going to be played by Savannah Stern in this next episode. She's going to be aged up and then ultimately will probably die, and that will be the last the last scenes obviously we see of her before Aemon ends up claiming Vhagar. I'm pretty sure maybe the last scene of the episode is Aemon claiming Vhagar, but it looks as though he has to face off against Sea Smoke because Laenor would obviously keep his dragon in the same place as Vhagar, and that's what makes me think that Sea Smoke came out to see what the rustle was. And also at Laena's funeral, at high tide, there was never that many dragons in one location than at Laena's funeral. It was actually dubbed the new old Valyria, like the new little Valyria, because there were so many dragons present at Laena's funeral. But anyway, I think that's Sea Smoke. It's the one that looks a lot like Drogon. And then we see that eventually he's going to go and claim Vhagar. We also got Aegon bullying Jacaerys, and that led into a Kristen Cole and Harwin Strong showdown. Obviously, Harwin is the strongest man in the kingdoms. Looks like he bullies Cole a little bit. There's an exchange there. They're called strong lads. Like, after Aegon kicks Jacaerys down, he probably says, "Oh, I thought you could take that because you're a nice, strong boy," you know. So Aemon is also in this scene too, so it's gonna be really intense to watch. We got the dragon eggs and the lessons, and we got who I believe is a younger version of Vermax and Jacaerys teaching Vermax how to Jacaerys. Right, that's going to be amazing to see. And my favorite moment of the teaser is when Vhagar is, being ridden by Laena, and we see Daemon. That is going to be an intense, amazing scene. And now that we kind of know Laena has to die this episode, since they showed us that Aemon's going to be claiming Vhagar, it's going to be even more brutal. I bet you the large chunk of the episode is going to be spent with him. Then we have Alicent jealous of Rhaenyra's beautiful black-haired babies, right? She's basically talking shit to the king like, one child is one thing, but three? That's an insult. That's crazy, right? And then we also got a knife that's being heated up over a brazier, and that's going to be likely to use to remove the tongue of Vaemon Velaryon. That is Corlys's younger brother, and he's going to basically tell the king, "Yo, your daughter's kids are bastards. I want to be named the heir of Driftmark and High Tide because I am an actual Velaryon." And the king has their tongue removed because he's tired of everybody talking shit. We also have a voiceover in this trailer of Viserys talking with Larys, I believe. Maybe it's kind of hard to tell. It's really low. It may be Larys just talking to someone else, and we also have Viserys talking. But basically, the conversation that happens is like, what would you do for your kids? That's the whole theme of this promo. It's like the kids are taking over the story. They're going to be aged up, but ultimately, aside from Rhaenyra and Alicent, their children are going to be the real stars of this show. You know, we have Aegon 2, Aemon One Eye, and then Jacaerys and Lucerys. Lucerys, meets his tragedy early on in this show. Obviously, it's going to happen at the end of the season. But at this point, this seems like a really good point to wrap this video up. I want to thank you all so much for watching. Remember what I mentioned at the beginning of this video? Everybody knows I'm being shadow banned. I don't need to keep saying it and going on like minute-long tangents in all these videos. So basically, just help me combat that. Subscribe. Once I reach 100,000, I probably won't be shadow banned as much anymore. And then also consider checking out my Patreon, which is the ultimate way to no longer rely on YouTube ad revenue. Thank you for watching. My name's Mark.